Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment. I want to welcome you all to our 5th in series webinar for the 2022. Today, we are actually going to be talking about a title that is very dear to my heart. Can we please mute our, yeah, thanks a lot. A title that is very dear to my heart, and that is Publish or Perish. But before I say that, I also want to use the opportunity to thank my boss, Professor Rodney Genga, and also to thank his boss, which is my boss's boss, the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment, that is Professor Tukuzwani Majozi. And also want to thank all the academic staff, all the professors, the senior lecturers and lecturers in the school, in the various schools in the faculty, and also want to thank all the people that are here today participating in this webinar. We thank you so much for coming, and thank you for giving us some of your time and to allow us to share some of this new knowledge with you. On that note, I'm very grateful, and also to thank the guest speaker, who is I called him a big brother and somebody, a mentor, someone that I look up to, Professor Michael Daramola, and I will be introducing him shortly. Thank you so much for coming. But before I do that, I like to tell a story. So I'm going to tell you a short story, and then whilst I'm telling the story, hoping that a lot of people will join. So the story is about Max Planck. Maybe some of you might have heard me say it on different platforms, but when Max Planck won the Nobel Prize in Physics, I think that was in 1909, he had opportunity to be going around giving guest lectures. And then he had a chauffeur, a driver, who drives him from place to place for him to give the talk. And anytime the driver parked and then Max Planck gets on stage, the driver goes behind the stage and just sit there and listen to Max Planck try to give lectures that goes into the heart of his discovery and what contributed to the Nobel Prize, which he won. So after the chauffeur noticed Max Planck has done this over so many times, he got to a point where he suggested to Max Planck and say, Max, I have seen you present this presentation over and over and over again. So now I want us to have a deal. The next time when we go to your next appointment, I will be you and you will be me. What I meant is that you will drive me and I will go to stage because I can do this. And if this is all that you engineers and scientists do, then the work should be much cheaper. So Max Planck, who is an experimental physicist, agreed. So when they went to the next place, Max sat at the back of the podium, and then the chauffeur went to the stage. Because he has memorized Max Planck's verbatim, he delivered the speech and did everything so well. So after he was about to leave the stage, there was one professor in the midst of the audience who lifted his hands and then asked a question that went into the heart of Max Planck's discovery. And so when the chauffeur realized that he could not answer this was what he said. I expected a lot from this crowd. But then I realized that you've asked a question so basic that even my chauffeur would answer. Why am I telling you this story? Today, we are here to talk about publish or perish. One of the ways as a scientist you can be able to communicate your ideas and things that you know and things that you do in the lab effectively is your ability to publish them. You can publish them in a conference proceedings, a book chapter. You can even publish them in a journal. But if your inability to do this is lacking, what it means is that you will not be able to communicate what is in your head. And nobody really cares what you know or what is in your head. We care about how you are able to use what you know to affect lives, how you are able to use what you know to challenge the conventional thinking that we have, how you are able to use what you know to help others become better. And since we are talking about communication today, and the topic is publish or perish, I would like you to invite you to this topic and also to introduce our speaker for today. I sent all of you the abridged version of his CV, but I'm just going to mention some of the key milestones in his journey for over 15 years, the things he has been able to do, and how he has been able to leave the the title of this particular thing. So the professor speaking to us today is Professor Michael Daramola. He's a full professor and the head of Department of Chemical Engineering at the University of Pretoria. Prior to that, he was an associate professor at the School of Chemical and Metallurgical Engineering, University of the Witwatersrand, where he's also currently a visiting associate professor. He's a chartered engineer with the Engineering Council of the United Kingdom. He's a registered engineer with the Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN. He is a C-rated research scientist by the National Research Foundation. He has over 15 years of leading research globally as a principal investigator in countries such as France, Netherlands, Singapore, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Portugal, just to name a few. In 2021, the Stanford top 2% scientists in the world, he had that recognition through some of the work he's done and through some of the things that some of the top engineers and scientists in the world actually recognize. He has been nominated twice for the award as a researcher in the engineering category for research capacity development. He has over 160 peer-reviewed journal articles. He has 2 patents to his name. He has 2 books, 15 book chapters, 48 papers in conference proceedings, 62 oral and poster presentations. He has graduated so many PhDs, masters, and honor students. And without further ado, please, will you help me welcome today to the podium or today's webinar, Professor Michael Daramola. Prof, over to you, and thank you so much for coming. Thank you for giving us your time. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very
now
much.
I'm gonna shush. Yes. I'm gonna shush, and you can do your thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and Dr. Desmond. And also now I want to thank everybody now for making it to this presentation this evening. And above all, I want to thank God Almighty for making this possible. It has been a pleasure to always now share my ideas, my experience, and my thinking with the academic community. Not only that, with researchers, whether in this country or even outside the country. And I want to also thank, a lot of things that Desmond has mentioned in terms of what God has helped me to achieve. And I still want to share something with him now from Isaac Newton, which I really believe so strongly in. And that thing is, I want to appreciate those people that have trained me, because I would say that I always stand on the shoulders of the giants. From those people I've already benefited a lot. And with this, I will go straight to the topic of today. The topic of today says publish or perish. I'm a teacher or a lecturer, so I always want a situation where there will be very good interaction, so that I'll be able to understand, not that I will only be talking without having something from you. May I just ask, how many of you now know or have heard of this publish or perish? You can just type something, or you can talk to me if you have the opportunity to do that. If not, I will just, okay, well, I will believe that we all know that if you are in academia, and even now if you are a researcher, you know that the phrase publish or perish is a kind of, sorry, can you, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
My slide is not moving. That's, I don't know why.
Oh, let's check it again.
Okay, I think it's, yeah, okay. It is now, sir.
Good,
so
good.
It's a common phrase that we normally use in academia, and that one describes the pressure that researchers feel to publish their research findings. And why do we have to do this? A lot of things, because you want to be very relevant, you want to be successful within the academic community, and that's why it is very important. If you don't publish to be relevant, then you perish to be irrelevant anymore. And that's the major topic of today. And looking at it now, wow, let's just look at this cartoon. You know, on the right, my right hand side is let's say a professor, a very good academic, died and went to heaven. Then when he said now, then meet the angel. The angel says, oh well, oh welcome son. I don't see your name here. The guy says, oh please, can you check? I must be there. There are a list of categories there. Can you check publish or perish category? And actually that you find my name there. And if you go further now, you see, the evolution of academia is first we have to publish and look at the new academics in an institution saying, okay, well, I need to publish. It's quite very important. Then say, oh, publish or either I perish if I don't do this. And another thing is that, well, even if you publish, I need to publish in high impact journals. If I don't do that, then something is not going to, because I need to be very relevant. And not only that, I want to make a name in academia. And if you have been doing that frequently, then if you have been doing that, publishing, not only publishing in any journal, but very high impact journals, then you are happy. You want to say, well, maybe you are not going to perish in this case. And when you look at it now, it has become very necessary in academia worldwide to consider the phrase publish or perish. And there's been a call for us now to, I would say, to buckle up. We need that. And if you see recently now, a lot of universities now, they want to be well rated, they want to be noted, they want to be ranked among the best in the world. And one of the things they consider is the publication. Not just publication, but the impact factor of the journals in which they have published. So which means as a young academic or as a researcher, this is where you begin from. You have your idea. First, I think when you have your, you want to say, well, I want to start publishing. But the first thing, you begin to have ideas. When you have your ideas now, you translate the ideas into research, or you research topic that you can investigate. You do that, you get a lot of data, you do a lot of things, you analyze all the data, everything like that. Then you are happy. If you are happy, but if you don't publish what you have, then you go to perish. Then you have to write and publish. And when you publish, the first time you have your article published, you're very, very glad. I could remember when I was a PhD student, my first, even before a PhD, before I started my PhD, the first article I got published when I was an assistant lecturer in a university in Nigeria. When it was accepted, I was over the moon. That I could do something, sent out, accepted, I was so happy about that. But that should not be the end, but just the beginning of things that we look at. Let's just look at this. A lot of questions, if you know that you need to publish, a call has been given to you. There are a lot of questions that you want to ask yourself, especially now for a starter. Why do you publish? Where do you publish? A lot of things. You even consider, what do you publish? What do you consider publishable? You've done a lot of research, or you've started something. Out of what you have gotten, how do you know that the information you have is publishable? How? And that's why do you? Then how do you develop a publishable manuscript? First, you want to know, why do we publish? Why do you publish? Where do you publish? What do you publish? How do you develop a publishable manuscript? What are the ethics in publishing? There are a lot of ethics there that you need to abide by. If not, you might find yourself thrown out of the community. And you have to make sure that everything is done ethically. And the last thing is that, how can you enhance your research output and your feasibility? So those are the questions now that we are going to look at, which many of people now might be having in their minds. These are the questions that might be agitating the minds of even now the new starters, the young or the early career researchers, starting up now to know what they do, how they have to what, to publish. So it's very important that we have to address all these questions so that we be able to know how to publish, so that we will not perish but stay relevant in the academia. Let's take the first question. Why do you publish? And where do you publish? Those are the two questions I'm going to bring together. And when we consider it now, why do we publish? We want to publish because we've done something very interesting and we are so excited. We want to make sure that we throw it out now to the audience, our colleagues, because when you do something that is quite very interesting, you don't keep it to yourself. You want to give to the audience, to your colleagues. Those are the audience, your colleagues in that field. To say, oh, Michael has done something. Please, colleagues, this is what I've done. I want to see how you are going to see my contribution or to make use of my contribution in the field. And another thing is this: without publishing results, we've gotten some important data that we have collected. If we don't publish them, they are going to be inaccessible to the scientific community. And we want all what we are doing now to be very accessible to our community, scientific community, so that some people now will bid on that. Some people will make use of that data for further implementation or application in different areas. And that's why we want to do that. And little or no value for your effort if you don't publish. You've done a lot of things, you can say, well, I've done a lot of things, I know this and that. People will ask you, show us, have you published? Have you communicated that information to your colleagues in the field? But you have not done that. Then so well, you are just bluffing, because there's nothing to show for the effort that you think you put into that research. And that's why it is very important to do that. And another thing that is very important is that we want to advance science. So because we want to do that, it is very, very important and it's very essential for researchers to share their results. And that's why if we share your results, then we'll be able to advance knowledge, advance science. If you look at the researchers, in those days now, maybe like Isaac Newton, they have done, and because they shared what they got, and that's why we could build on that, and that's why we can advance science in that area. And what is quite very important, and that's why when you look at the word or the phrase publish or perish in academia, it is always tied to the promotion in academia. And it is recently a lot of institutions, even in Africa, they are, I would say, enhancing their requirements, tightening up their requirements for promotion compared to some years back. Even if you're not very careful, if some years back, maybe about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you may just even have one or two papers. Before you see it now, you have become a professor. But these days now, you have to struggle a lot before you attain that, because people want to see what has been your contributions to the science, what has been your contribution to engineering, before you can be given that title of a professor or a professorship in that area. It must show your contribution, and that contributions now we have to make now are benchmarked with those are in the world. And one of the things that I always use now is publication, journals, articles you have published, books you have published, contribution you've made. And that's how it is very important to consider that. And another thing is, where do we publish? We all know this, especially now we know we have journal, which is a scientific journal. It could be a kind of a monograph. And at times now you can have it in terms of book chapters or books. All those things are just materials that serve as a medium for us to lay hand on verified information, accepted information, tested information that has been in the scientific domain. And that's why this scientific journal has served as a medium to do that. This is periodically now published. And the intent of that is to further the progress of our science. either in engineering, and you have to. That's why those articles, or let me put it, manuscript that you have written, will have to go through thorough peer review by your colleagues. Then they know what this has been known to be. It is published, and you have that journal to serve as a medium to transfer your information to others. And that's why this is very, look at it now, when you have a lot of journals, we know what we call the impact factor of journals, which I've mentioned. At times we call it IF or JIF, journal impact factor. And it's this is the way it is. All journals, very creditable journals, they always want to strive to have this impact factor. Why? Because the impact factor now determines their own position, the quality of what they are producing or they are publishing in that particular field. And always now, people want to know, when there is a very good journal, high impact factor journal, you believe that what will be published there will be very high quality, very useful, very dependable, and something you can build on to advance science or engineering in this case. And when you look at it now, do we know for journals now, the way you calculate that is calculated in every two years. And the way they do that is that you look at the total number of articles that that journal has published within those 2 years. And when you look at those data, then we now look at the number of times those articles have been cited within a period of 2 years. Then you also look at the number of that citable articles that journal has published in those 2 years. Number of citation of N journal articles. Where N stands for the number of citable articles that has been cited in that journal. Then you divide it, you get your impact factor of that journal. You can have journal of impact factor of less than 1, maybe 0.5, and you have a journal of impact factor of about 40, 50. And that one, it talks about the quality of information you have there. And that's why it's very important. We consider that one to be very important. These are different kind of journals. I wanted to put a lot of, to put their impact factor, which I believe most of you will know very well. For instance, now, if you see the Nature communication, publishing in Nature, when you publish in Nature, it's one of the journal that is quite well rated. And that one is published by Nature Publishers. Nature Publishers is one of the publishers that is reckoned with in the world. They have a lot of journals, and a lot of their journals are well rated. For instance, Nature Communication is about 4 point something. ACS Sustainable, that one is about 9 point something in terms of the impact factor. Science is about 34 impact factor. You have the mining engineering, cleaner production is there, which is about 10 impact factor. Even Journal of Environmental Chemical Engineering, that one started about, I think, maybe about 10 years ago, even less than that, and it has been given an impact factor of more than 5. Why? Because the journal has improved in terms of publishing well tested and trusted information, and people have been they look into that. And when you have a journal that has a very good impact factor, and you have known that the information is dependable, everybody wants to be part of that. And of course, now we have our own South African based journals, like South African Journal of Science of impact factor of about 1. And we have the South African Journal of Chemical Engineering, which has not been given any impact factor. But if you look at that now, you see that it's also coming up. And when we have this, how do we know that journals that are very dependable, in which we can publish? I will show it to you. There is what we use now to measure that. Before we do that now, just to quickly tell you now, you must have seen these publishers before, Elsevier. The headquarters is in the Netherlands. Taylor and Francis, they are Taylor and Francis is a publisher. They have a lot of publication which they do publish in the scientific domain, even in other field of, of disciplines as well. And you have Springer Publishing Company. You have that. You have even now the Nature, which I mentioned, the Nature Publishing Group. Always publish something like Nature Communication and a lot of things like that. And we have Bethlehem Science as well. We've gotten a few journals in that now that are also coming up very well. We have MDPI, which I did not even mention here now, which publishes a lot of open access journals now that's also now they are well rated. Then we have the American Chemical Society. They publish a lot of journals now that are also now well rated in terms of the impact factor. Just a few of these examples of this publisher we all know. We have Blackwell and some other things like that that also now they are very good publishers as well. It depends on the journal articles. The journal in which you want to publish your manuscript. And when you look at that journal, then you will also see the publisher. For instance, if you see any journals that are published now by Elsevier, you will see the logo there. Likewise, all other publishers, they always keep their logos either on the right-hand side of that article or on the left-hand side of the article. So that you will know that this is the publisher of that particular journal. And another thing that is quite very important is this. We all know that before even now there's something we call open access. There is what we call the subscription-based journals, which means if you do that in a subscription-based journals, they are actually now being subscribed to by big organizations. For instance, a university. They pay a lot of money to subscribe to these journals. Why? Because they consider the information as the basis of the knowledge which they want in the university or in that organization. And for instance, a very good university that wants to be abreast of the information, that want to be relevant in the academic field or to be relevant in the scientific field, will always invest in the subscription to good journals, because that's how they can get information that they can use to build themselves, to even form the basis of their research in that university. So all universities, they do pay for that, and they pay millions. In South Africa, like my own university pays millions of rand to subscribe to journals every year. And that's why, if a lot, for instance, in South Africa, when you publish, you have subsidies, you wonder why or where those money always go to, or where the money always go to. It goes for what? Part of them, a lot, goes into I would say maintaining the subscription to all these journals. And that's why it is very important for you as researchers, either students or colleagues in this field, that when you are within the intranet of your university, you can, and your university has subscribed to publishers of journals and to several journals in that with that publisher. It could be some university they have subscribed from maybe as far back as 1960 to date. You just click on that. When you go to that site, you click on that paper, you'll be able to download. Why? Because your university has subscribed. So we could call those ones subscription-based journals. You don't need to pay anything to publish there. You don't need to pay anything to get the articles that has been published to make use of. But we have seen that it is in some cases now, not all the organizations or universities have that financial capacity to subscribe. Then it makes it very, very difficult for their researchers to publish, because they can publish, yes, but very importantly, they can publish without subscribing to those journals, but they may not be able to have access to those journals. And many researchers now that are in such organizations or in such universities now, who are not even subscribed to the subscription-based journals, will not have access even to what they themselves have published. And if they don't have that, many organizations like that will not be able to access what others have published because their organizations have not subscribed to the journals and they will not have access. And that's why, because of that, there will be limitation in the citation to what you have published in those subscription-based journals. And that's why it is very important for these publishers to find a way out so that they will make their own journals to be much more accessible. And they came up with what we call the open access. The open access involves that you have to even pay your money. You can see the padlock is open. It's not locked. Unlike the subscription-based journals, it is locked. So in this case now, you have to what? To pay money. So you pay to publish. And when you pay to publish, you have paid the price. Then you make your journals, your articles publicly available. And through that means you have helped those people whose organization have not been able now to subscribe to subscription-based journals or to that particular journal. In that case now, you will attract your paper or your articles can attract a lot of citations because it is now made available to a wider audience, a wider scientific community to read and to make use of. But you need to pay your price. Pay. And in that case, there are two types of this open access. We have open access gold, open access green. The open access gold is the one that you pay a lot of money for and it is made public to everybody, unlimited. There's no limitation. So, and it is immediately available. It is immediately available. But at times now for the open access green, you have a period of embargo. And that money you pay for that is also is not as much as for the open access gold. For instance, at times if you want to publish maybe let's look at a journal, let's say chemical engineering journal published by Elsevier, CEJ. Then the CEJ will say, well, if you want to make your article to be an open access gold, maybe you have to pay between $3,000 to $4,000. And you look at it, you calculate it. Say, this is a lot of money. It's going to about let's say 48,000 rand. 48,000 rand to pay to publish this. And that's why some of us now, we know it's a very high impact factor journal. CEJ is about 12 now, impact factor. You want to publish there, you've gotten something that could be publishable in that journal. And you don't have money to pay to make it open access. You do it subscription based, you attract very little citation. Why? Because not everybody might have been able now to subscribe to that journal. But in the open access green, instead of paying maybe 3,000, they can ask you to pay like 1,200 or even 2,000. Then they lock your article for a period of time. They place embargo on that, maybe 2 years, 3 years. Then after that, they make it publicly. So it was locked, open to all. But it takes a lot of money to do that. But it has its own benefit. As you can see there, more exposure for your work, high citation or higher citation of your work. Then even now, your research could influence policy if you publish in open access. Do you know why? Why? The reason being that it is made available to the public. Even the government parastatals, they can lay their hand on it now and they may be able to extract a lot of information which they might be able to use to influence their policy. Likewise now, practitioners they are willing to make use of what? Of your data, they have access to that. And that's how you get a lot of acceptability, or even I would say you get higher citation for that. And this is just comparing where you have to pay article processing charge. That's the open access. We call it article processing charge. Those are the things they mention it that way. The journal will tell you that APC has to be paid, and it varies based on the impact factor of this journal. I think I've mentioned all kinds of things to you. I'm just putting it in perspective, and also now I'm just making it in such a way that the open access journal, your money, how the money you at times now you write a funder, maybe you apply for a grant, then in that grant you make a portion then to be for open access. It is always advisable. If you are able now to get money from a funder, please always include publication in open access. A portion of it should be like that. Maybe I'm going to use this one for the publication because we are going to pay. So the funder gives the money, you write, you publish, and library also now, they have to subscribe to those journals, like I've mentioned to you. Though it has been made open access, they still have to subscribe. You paid, but they still have to make sure they do that as well. They bring in money into that, and you can see the flow. You have your papers being distributed or all over the world for people to have immediate access to that, which is quite very important. And if you look at it now, you want to say, well, I've published. And where, how do you know? I asked a question the other time that how do you know where you can find very dependable, or I would say high quality journal in which you can publish? We have what we call indexing and abstracting. You want to look at that, and not all journals you have find their way into these highly rated indexing and abstracting platform like Web of Science, Scopus. So any journal that you know that have been listed on these platforms have been well scrutinized, followed by Thomson Router, which is Web of Science, or Elsevier, which owns the Scopus. They will have looked into that, and they have followed. Before you can have anything listed there, they have been following that journal maybe for a minimum of 5 years, looking at the quality of what they have been publishing, the information. There will be a lot of I would say the committees within these organizations now that have been looking into that, evaluating the quality, and at a point in time when they find the quality acceptable at the level of what they want, they will list that journal. And that's where we all want to publish. Because when we want to look at journals in Scopus or journals that have been listed in Web of Science, and there's another one we call the ISI, which is we call it a International Scientific Index. We want to also publish that ISI journal. Those are the very, very dependable, but they are still just what ISI, Scopus. I would say they are still under what I can call the Web of Science, but they are very separate. But they work together to also compete to see how they can bring in. And I would say I will always advise that any journal that is not listed either in the Web of Science or in the Scopus shouldn't be a choice for you to publish. And I'm so glad that for South African community, especially now, the Department of Higher Education, they always provide a list of all the journals. They call it DHET accredited journals. Every year they compile this list, and the list will either be in Scopus, ISI, or Web of Science for the scientific community. We have also now for our counterpart in the humanities as well. That's quite very important. Even in the health sciences, they do have as well that they have. And if you look at that, if you want to find out the list, even at your university, every university, the research and development department of every university, they always have this list, even on their website, which you can. And if you don't If you don't get that, you can go to DHET. They always give you the information to let you know. And I use that one a lot if I want to publish, to know where should I publish as well, because I want my publication to attract a lot of citation. Then the question is, what do you publish? We know where to publish. We have known that, well, if you want to publish, let's aim I would say high impact journals, or journals that are listed in either Web of Science or Scopus, because these are the journals that are being tested, evaluated, and trusted in the scientific community. And that's where you can have your work now can attract a lot of citation, because they have evaluated the platform, and they find your work also now very, very useful in the community. So you know where, you know why we publish, you know what where, and you should publish. Then the question is that what do you publish, or what should you publish? This is, and it's quite very difficult in some people now, even I know, if not all, a majority of early career researchers now, they find it very difficult to know the novelty in any of the work they've done. And that's why it's very important for them now to decide whether to publish or to perish in court. What is very important is that we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to throw out new knowledge, new findings outside there. And that will make, or will create a kind of excitement for our colleagues in the scientific community. And that's why, what do we define by new knowledge? The new knowledge now should constitute novelty in a particular field. Novelty means something that has never been known, or something that we've never understood the way you've presented it, but in such a way it has shed a bit of light to what has been in existence. And I want to let you know that there's nothing new under the heaven, even on the earth. But what we do is that we refine every day. We refine every day. We have a way of thinking around it every day, make it better all the way. And that's what creates that kind of excitement. And when we look at it in terms of the new knowledge, you want to, even it could be theoretical. Yes, you come up with a lot of maybe the theoretical ways of doing things. It could be empirical. It could be new procedures, even method of doing things. But the issue is this: how do you identify what constitutes new knowledge or novelty in any research you are doing? How do you identify that? I would say that the way to identify is this. We can look at what we are doing in terms of our research. Then we'll see, and we ask ourselves a question: what I'm doing, having gone through the literature, is it making any useful contribution to the knowledge in that particular field? Am I adding to any empirical knowledge? Is there any new facts that I'm bringing into this? Or am I developing or testing new methodologies? It might be a relatively new one. It could even at times it could even be modifying an existing one. For instance, maybe there's a model that has been developed for a particular situation. Those people now, when they were developing the model, there were a lot of assumptions they've taken. Maybe it was developed in 10 years ago or 20 years ago, when we never had more sophisticated facility. They never had it then, but now you have. Then you can look at the model again to see. Take away those assumptions which those people assumed at that time. Then if you do that, believe it or not, you will come up with a very, very new. It may not be entirely new because you are building on something very new, but it will give you more interpretation, more flexibility, and there will be more application of that model, better than what you had 10 years ago. And if you have that thing, it is a new thing that you have created, so to say, or you have added to the knowledge. And at times now you might be confirming some things that has been done. I do always tell my students that, well, when you are doing research, there's no bad results, no good results. What we do is that you are making information available. And it depends on how you can explain what you have observed. And when you do that, do it sincerely. Sincerity. We should be a very sincere scientist who is ready to, to report what we have seen, observed. Because the information you are giving out, whether it is according to what people have been reporting, it is still also now very good information which you have seen, you have repeated several times, you are still getting the same thing. And you find out that when you are comparing what you have gotten with literature, there is a bit of disparity. You don't throw that one away. Report it. Let them know. Maybe you are the one that is right. Maybe others that have reported have not been doing it well. It is also now a kind of contribution, because you want to now alert your community, your colleagues in the community, to do it better. And another thing is this now, what do we publish? We have understood what we have to publish in terms of the information, in terms of the contribution. But when we bring everything together, then we want to know in terms of what actually do we publish in the journals as articles. I came up with about 4 that we do publish. You can see we have what we call the research articles. These research articles now will give the what? It will always report the experimental findings or theoretical findings that you have come up with yourself. You designed that one, you conducted the experiment, or you ran the simulations, you got some data to speak to some particular situation. Then it becomes kind of, we refer to it as a research articles. If you look at different journals now, they will also, now you either publish a research article or you publish a review article. And what is that review article? Review article is not based on experiment, or it's not based on a particular design of a research design from which you want to come up with new findings. But in this case now, it's just looking at what others have done. And when you have looked into what others have done, you want to critically analyze. Critically, please, I want to use that one. Critically analyze. That's critical analysis of what has been done before, reported by different kind of researchers. Then when you critically analyze this, then you'll be able to see a lot of challenges, a lot of disparities at times, which you can come up with to introduce or to alert our scientific community. And that's why I always say that a review article is not just compilation of information. It is information that has been critically analyzed. Data is involved, which we have critically looked into. And it must be very robust and informative. If you research a review article is not like that, then it's just a mere literature review that you have done. You've compiled that. And another thing that is also very important is short communication. And what is that short communication? Short communication is a kind of finding that you have gotten from your research that you are doing. Especially now your research, you got that one, but it's not enough as a full-length paper. But it's something that is quite very, very hot, and you want to throw it out quickly. You do that. And when you have a short communication, you can have a short communication. And following that short communication, you can also have a very good research article. But when you do short communication, you've alerted others. You could be the first person to throw it out, and you have captured that the interest of your scientific community. And if anybody is publishing, they will always be referring to you. And that one has given that platform to roll out all other research articles of that. So you can find something that is very interesting, don't keep it. If it is not even up to a full-length paper, throw it out. Another thing is editorial. Editorial is just maybe at times now, there's a particular new area, they want to just write a very short, brief information on that for you to, we say, to sensitize the audience, their scientific community, or the audience reading that journal or publishing that journal, to see new areas. At times we have one journal, we call it the chemical current opinion in chemical engineering. Current opinion in chemical engineering in some cases now could be very, very short information, but it gives us new research areas in that in chemical engineering. I've mentioned the difference between this, we can also say. But the thing is this now, well, we've known that we need to publish what is novel. But the issue is this: how do you obtain novel knowledge to publish? How do you obtain that? My answer to that would be what? We need to do research before publishing. You can't publish without having the research done. And what is that research? It's just the systematic investigation into or study of materials. Could be mystery, could be situation, process. And what we do that now, we want to establish facts. We want to establish facts. And what we do in research, as I always tell my students, is that what we do in research is we make unknown known, unknown known to our people, to our colleagues. And Albert Einstein says, well, the whole science is nothing more than a refinement of everyday thinking. And that's what I've just mentioned. That there's nothing new. You are not doing anything new. But the way you are thinking about it is quite very different from what has been published or what has been reported. And that's what makes it very new in that area as well. And as I've mentioned, our research means to investigate something you do not know or understand. Neil Armstrong said that. And basically now, what you have just mentioned is just you are making unknowns known. That's what we do. And that's why I always say that there's nothing as good research, there's nothing as what? As very bad research, in quotes. I always say the result I got from this researcher is the results are so bad. No. If you have followed established scientific procedures, then what information you are getting is dependable, and make it known to people. And for research, there are 4 things now you must have your brain to think, your eyes, to observe. When you are doing experiment or anything, maybe data analysis, you have to look at it very well, use your brain to think, eyes to say. And in the case of experimental, there must be equipment for you or facility with which you can collect data, and must be in a very established scientific ways. Of course, money is very important for that. And in new research, what we do, we acquire information, we disseminate information, and we apply the information that we have. And that's why it is very important that you have to publish, so that we can know what you have acquired. When you disseminate, you have disseminated that now, then people outside now will be able what to apply that and make use of. I just put this one now. When we look at a research project, the situation must come up. That's how you can get the information that you want to publish. Don't just get something that is not useful, because it's not going to be useful for you in terms of getting very good journal article published in very respectable journal. Okay, that's what we do, and that's what I've just explained. And I want to also emphasize this one, that it is very, very important. Literature review is the first thing you do before you can think of developing any kind of research topic. because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to make sure that you understand the gaps in the field, because understanding the gaps in the field, the knowledge gaps in the field, will help you to have novel research knowledge or novelty in your research. And when you have that, it is the basis for you now, or it is a motivator for you now to go and get published. Get published. Not in the ordinary journal, but high impact journals, because you have identified what will contribute to knowledge in that field. And I want to just emphasize this now that when you have done a very thorough literature review, thorough literature and critically done, then you will have what will give you the platform to know why and how of doing things that will lead to having very, very novel information that you want to contribute or publish. Then if you are doing this every time, I want to tell you it is very interesting. It is very interesting. You will just be excited all the time. And writing and publishing will be very easy for you, because you've gotten a lot of information which has been acquired through your thorough and critical literature review, because you've identified the gaps. What I normally do for my students is that when we have this, we first look at literature to identify the gaps. Then we, I would say, carefully now organize those gaps to lead to contributions, original contributions in the field. Then, which means, for instance, if you have organized those gaps into about 4 or 5 objectives, it means that each objective is a contribution. And based on that, that particular objective, we'll conduct everything, conclude it, write at least a paper out of it, which will be published in a high impact journal. Why? Because we have understood how to develop a very productive research proposal. And that is very important. Without that, there's no way you'll be able to publish. There's no way, because there will be nothing for you to publish that. So as Steve mentioned a lot of things. For instance, if you look at that proposal in terms of the flow, which I always give to my student and we follow, we first have to know what the problem statement is. And that one, it's getting from the literature will help us to be able to know what we need to do in terms of our aim, to be able to formulate our research questions, which we develop. We are going to develop those research questions to our objectives. And based on that, we have to look for the methodologies of how to achieve those objectives. And achieving those objectives now will pave the way for us now to answer our research questions. Answering the research questions now, which has been the gaps in the field, has provided our platform for you to publish, because you have been able now to contribute to provide solutions to some, I would say, identify problems or as issues within that kind of things. And it's very important. You can publish without having very solid research proposal, which you want to execute to give you the gaps in the field. Okay. And another thing that you said, well, how do you measure the quality? I think this was very, I'm not going to dwell much on this. It depends. Most importantly, is the quality. Quality and at times the quantity of the knowledge you have generated from that research is quite very important. Then how should you develop a publishable manuscript? How? We know how. We know what. How do we get the information? Yes, you've gotten the information, you've acquired that, then how do you see that at what? To develop a publishable manuscript. I will just quickly say that from the Ryan Holiday says, writing a perfect paper is a lot like a military operation. And we all know when we say military operation, they have to what? They have to cross their T and dot their I's very well. They map out, they think, they plan. So to write a very good paper, it requires planning. You plan it. You don't just take it and write something. It's something you've been planning. And everything you are doing, put it in, because you want to communicate. very well to your audience. When you do that, you're happy at all time. So I look at some generic format of a lot of journals, but this is what we have. In any kind of manuscript, you want to have the title, abstract should be there, introduction and motivation should be there because they want to see why you are doing that. Then if you are doing experimental, even modeling, anything, you need to tell us how you did that. Then you have your result and you need to discuss your results, not describe the results. I always tell my students or my colleagues, there's a difference between description of results and discussion of results. I will tell you that. Then you conclude. And your conclude must not be the repetition of your abstract. No. Of course, you acknowledge people that have assisted you. You are not the only one. And you put your references are very important. The list of references is very important because you must have built on a particular platform, and you want to acknowledge them. And you have even compared your result with literature. You want to also now acknowledge all those kind of things. It's quite very important. You've used other method that has been developed by others. You have to mention that as well. So I will say that the title, this is the subject of our article, and it should contain keywords that describe the overall content of the article. You see why you need to plan very well. You can't just pick something. And it should not be the title of your research topic or research project, which I've found in some master students, when you ask them to write a paper, a draft, the title of their paper will be the title of the what? Of the project. So, but why? Why would this one be? It should not. You have to think, what are you going to really communicate in this? It involves a lot. And it should be catchy to attract readers. And at times now, people are not thinking very well. When you see some articles now, when you see the title, you think you will get what you are looking for. By the time you look in that paper, you'll be very angry. You throw it away because it is deceiving. It is deceiving. That's why it's very important. Your keywords should describe the overall content of that article. And your abstract now should give us the summary of the whole content, because what we quickly read or what we might have access to quickly will be the abstract. When you read the abstract should be able to give you what the summary of what I should find in that paper at a glance. And that's why some people now, they will know, even some journals now, some of the journals are now going for what we call the graphical abstract. After you might have given the test, abstract as a test, they want to also now to give them the graphical abstract. Maybe visually now people will be very attracted to that and be able to say what is happening. And there's something you should know. Any abstract must consist of 3 major parts. If you cannot distinctively now identify those parts there, you have not written a very good abstract. It should tell me what you did. And what you did should even have about a statement about what led you to what you have done. For instance, I'm talking about global warming is a very serious issue that has killed this and that. I'm just giving and it has been known that some people have worked on this ABC without any success, but they came up with this. Therefore, this study is now looking critically into maybe implementation of what they came out with. You understand that? That's what is giving a bit of introduction to what you have done. Then the next thing is, how did you do it? Which is your methodology. Very short. What are the main results? Results should not only be qualitative, please. Quantitative in science. You want to see the data. Maybe you did a kind of a comparison. You want to see maybe one is 30% greater than the other. That's what. Not we find out that one is better than the other. That's qualitative. Then how better than the other is relative. How? To what extent? And that's why. And it is very important. It's a little line of what statement of the shortcoming. Don't tell me that what I've done is perfect. You also have your challenges, and that's why scientists must, I'll use must, M-U-S-T, sincere. Don't chunk out some data because it's not perfectly fitted. Then you are trying out what? To manipulate. It's not the best. You are not helping out. Instead of advancing science, you are not. You might be lucky to have it published because you have gotten something, the reviewers have done this, but You must be very sincere as well. And in terms of introduction and motivation, please, you motivate the study. I think I mentioned it briefly in your abstract. You must tell us about what many people or what you have read that people have reported. Don't tell me that nobody has reported it. Yes, don't say that. Because many people might be 1, 2 in some years back. You look for that, a basis for that. And that's why in your literature review, literature survey, you must extend your search beyond what you can get, because people must have done a lot of things, and you have to also now when in your introduction you might be able to compare to show the we say the shortcomings of what people have done that you are building on. And please don't rubbish anybody's job, anybody's reported work. You don't rubbish, please. Because if you don't do it, you will not be able to bid on that. You must acknowledge every person that has done something upon which you are building your own research on. And after that, there must be, you are building, then at the end of it now, which I normally do, at the end of that introduction, is then I will introduce my contribution of that study to that. And in the experimental method now, which is if you are doing any experiment and you need to have your materials and method, and I said this is the session that contains information about materials and method that you have used in that study. And in that materials, please, any materials or chemicals that you have bought, check the purity. It's always written on that chemical. Check everything that have been written there and make sure that you report what you have seen in terms of the chemicals you have used, even where you've bought it. It's very important. If you are taking samples of data, tell them the community, the location where you have taken. Why is this very important? If you are taking, maybe you might have found that one, maybe you might have had that experience. You have taken a paper, you want to reproduce. You bought all the chemicals as they have mentioned the name of the chemicals, and you started using the procedures that they have described in that experimental session. You discover that the results you are getting are not, you tried many times, not the same as what they have reported. Something is missing there. It might be that that paper did not give you the adequate information about that type of chemical. Maybe that chemical contains some impurity that have never been reported. They never reported it. Maybe that was even 70% purity. And because of other impurities of 30% will affect the result they have reported. And that's why it is very important. Experimental session, please be very detailed about it. Even the instrument you use, be detailed about it. The model, be detailed about it. Because it will help those people that want to use your paper to see how they can proceed with it. And that's why some papers now, they might be very good, but they attract a very little citation because they are not detailed, they are not useful. They can't find what is useful for them. Please, nothing should be left out. Even if it is under IP, mention it that this is under intellectual property protection. That's why we cannot divulge the information. They will know. And maybe they might get in touch with you privately. Then you can discuss that. It's very important. And it should be very clear, like I've mentioned, so that to allow the reproducibility of your results is very important. I've had experience of taking some papers that are not reproducible. Results and discussion very important. I mentioned this one very importantly, that one, don't describe results only, but discuss the results. When you are describing results, you are just telling us let me just talk about maybe data where you've seen maybe growth in a kind of maybe by I would say microbes, or let me say bacteria. You are looking at the growth and so I fed this bacteria with this carbon source and the growth has been exponential. You have described the results, but what made it exponential? What is the science behind making it exponential? And you have to provide reason. Why is it exponential? What have you observed? And your observation, what are the scientific reasons for that, for those observations? That's why you need to describe. I mean, to discuss, not only describing. And when you are discussing, also now, you want to compare that data with what has been reported in literature. And not only that, you want to go into understanding the science behind that, and you give explanation. Even especially now when you're talking about your of model, modeling, maybe you have done some kind of modeling, you have your data, you've gotten this, you want to find physical interpretation, especially now when you have what we call the empirical model, database modeling approach to your work. You have used some data to develop the model, but you must be able to provide what we call the physical interpretation, scientific interpretation to what you have got in terms of a model. It's very important because it must give us some kind of scientific interpretation. And the use of a vocabulary is very important, please. Specific to your field, use of vocabulary. In engineering, maybe you want to talk about adsorption. Don't start saying that the material is just on top and the thing is landing on the top and it's gotten this. Use adsorption. We know that. We know that very importantly. So our conclusion also is very important, and the conclusion should contain a concise summary of the finding, not repeating your abstract. Don't repeat the abstract. And you can as well mention advantages and disadvantages or limitations or shortcomings of your study. And always provide recommendations. When you are reading a paper, the first place I always go when I have an article, I'll just look at the abstract. Then after the abstract, I jump straight to the conclusion. Because if you have written a very good paper, I should be able to see the limitations. And that limitation could be something I can even dwell on to develop on. It is then when I find those one very interesting in terms of knowing that, then I go into the main body of the paper. That's how people read papers and make something very important into that. Acknowledgement is very important. References, please, it is very important as well. It's very important. And what are the ethics? I don't think I'll be able to copy because of the time, but it's very important to know. They are very important. Maybe something that we should keep for the other day. I don't know, Desmond, where we just talk about the ethics. Ethics is very, very important. I've been privileged to be part of a seminar that was presented by Elsevier Publisher when I was in the Netherlands. Their representative came now. I was able to know what are the ethics in research and publication. And some of the things, these are some of the things that we do. Or some of the scientists, they do that. You do that very well. Authorship, you don't agree on that. And not only that, something that is called simultaneous submission. Because you have submitted it and it's not quickly that you want to submit it to another paper, you will submit the same paper into 3 or 4 journals. Why? Because you want to see maybe this one will quickly do it and give me the result because I need this one for promotion. No, don't do that. It's unethical. It's unethical. And another thing we call research fraud is you want to publish data or conclusion that were not generated by your experiment. You manipulate. You look at it and just put it on this data should be because it's not straight enough. It should be straight according to what I read. Therefore, my data is not. Hey, I did it 4 or 5 times, it's the same thing. Let me just push it a bit. Nobody will see me. You are fabricated, falsified. It's unethical. You are not advancing knowledge. You are not advancing science at all. Another thing, a lot of things, salamine slicing. Getting something that is just a paper is enough. Data you have is enough for a journal article. Enough for one. But you want to have like 3 or 4 from that. You start what? Dividing. Slicing your data. Falsifying because you want to have like 4 or 5 papers from the same thing. It's unethical, please. Copyright issue is also a problem. You don't acknowledge. You take what doesn't belong to you. You find this one a lot when you are writing a review article. Because it's based on a lot of using information from what some people have done. If you don't do that, you want to just, I want to take it as my, no, We know that it's not your own. Be very sincere, very ethical and professional in what you do, which is very important. Our time does not allow me to do most of the things, but I think consider this one very important. And that's why I said top 5 reasons to publish ethically. You want to publish, not to perish, but publish ethically. Because if you don't do that ethically, it might lead to your perishment as well. And that's why you need to be very quick. Then now, can you enhance this? I mentioned something that is very importantly, collaborability. Collaborability means you collaborate. And when you collaborate, a lot of things you can. Yes, so which means you are not the only one doing it. You network, you work with people to enhance scientific quality of your paper, because many people will come into it now to look into it to give you a critical overview of what you have done. So from there, you learn from them and be able to contribute a lot. And it gives what increase the success of you getting published. And when you it increases the success, you know that you are far from perishing, but now looking towards what publishing, and increase a lot of numbers and improve your skills as well in the community. And that's why I agree with Robert Sire, who says the art and soul of good writing is research. You should write not what you know, but what you can find about, which is quite very important. At the same time, now work with our industrial partners so that we can bring a lot of practical experience of that problem you are solving into what you are doing. And that's what people look for. They want to see something that will be applicable outside there, not just compilation of journal articles. And to enhance your feasibility, please, if you have not registered in any, I just brought about these 3 common, we say the platform. If you have not registered in any of these 3 platforms, please go and do that. This is what people, even now employers, they always outside there, they want to look at this for scientists. Anything you want, if you are applying for any funding, ORCID, ResearchGate, or Google Scholar, is very, very important. Well, for those people who don't know me, this is me. It has been mentioned I'm currently now also now the head of department, and I'm a visiting professor, not visiting associate professor, visiting professor, visiting full professor at School of Chemical and Metallurgical Engineering, University of Witwatersrand, and also now at UKZN, and also I'm a research fellow at Kwame Nkrumah University in Ghana. And this is my department. I always want to talk about my department. We talk about our vision, mission, and values of the department. We want to grow professionals that will contribute towards African development. And we do this by being excellent, innovative, sustainable in our teaching, research, and human empowerment. You want to get connected, achieve excellence, and be very open to other people we work with. And in our strategic goals, we will call it triple ES. Triple ES. And when we want to do that, we want to engage, empower, we want to invest, and also sustain, because we want to achieve excellence in our teaching, excellence in our research, excellence in our administration and engineering training, and be sustainable in our finance and empowerment. A little bit of history of my department is this. Since it was the department was established in 1961, in 1960 rather, and it turned out the first graduate in 1962. And since then, by design, I happen to be the first Black African HOD that department since about 61 years of its existence. And the department is now growing in terms of ranking. Last year, it was ranked top 350. This year, it has been ranked top 300 globally, and is the 4th in Africa and the 3rd in South Africa in terms of the ranking. We are doing very well as well. And that's why we do publish. And not only just publishing, we publish in high impact journals, because we want to enhance our profile. We want to make sure that what we are doing are quite very, very acceptable outside there. There is strengths, and we have this. And if some of you that may want to know more about, you can see I'm listed. I subscribe to ORCID, Scopus, Google Scholar, ResearchGate, you might look and know this is one of the books that I published that has attracted, as I've mentioned. And for further readings, you can see that. Thank you very much for the time and for being very attentive. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have 10 more minutes, and I think that we got we asked for one, and you gave us two. But I'm like you discussed, I'm taking you on the ethics in research and publication, and that one we'll take it offline and we'll take it from there. Yeah, I can see the applause coming. I told you, a tree should be known by the fruit it bears, not the one that it talks about. And it here we've seen it, that yes, you either publish or perish. And like he said, you need a brain to think, the eyes to see. Very, very key and very, very important. He talks about the fact that we need to collaborate. Very, very important. I like what my PhD supervisor always says to me, Desmond, you are too long-winded and don't pad your PhD. I think she's here. I hope she's not, or she's here. Prof, that's just by the way. Yeah, so we welcome some questions. Esther, your question has actually been answered. You did ask, you said, you said something about the difference between describing and discussing. And I think Prof. Daramola made mention of that and actually answered it. If you want to ask a question, we have 9 more minutes before we bring the program to a close. You can unmute yourself and ask the question. I always say, when you come in the presence of people who are doing it, people who are helping, you should. Yes, Professor Cello, go for it.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got a question for Professor Daramola. There has always been, you mentioned something about publishing in open access journals. There's always been a concern, especially recently, about some of these open access journals being predatory, even though some of them are really, not that bad. And some institutes actually look down on some of these open access journals. What is your view on this, considering that, you mentioned that research has to be communicated and some people have got no access to these journals where you have to subscribe. But then, this issue that some researchers want to publish in the impact journals. So what is your take?
Thank you very much, Professor Cello Novo, for the question. I mentioned when I was giving the presentation, you have to consider what we call impact factor. Journal impact factor is very, very important. Let me give you an example of some journals in open access, like MDPI. MDPI will have close to about, if I can look at it, maybe close to 100 journals. And they are all open access. But maybe about 20% of those journals are even listed, or let me say, or are given the impact factor, about maybe 30%. Though they might also be listed on Scopus. Not all journals that are listed on Scopus have impact factor. Many of them may be open access. Please, Prof, before you publish in any open access, consider the impact factor. 1, consider that it is also listed in Scopus and Web of Science. Not all journals that are listed in Scopus are listed in Web of Science. They are just selected of those in Web of Science. And I will say that let's aim to go for Web of Science, not only in Scopus or open access. And that's what I will be my advice. I've seen a situation. Let me give an example of a journal. They call it Journal of it's published by Indian people, Journal of Chemical and Physical Science. This journal is listed in Scopus. It doesn't have any impact factor. But some people that are looking for in a Scopus Index journal, they will go for that. And they will easily publish their paper there. But they don't do any thorough review of any paper. there was a time I asked my students to send a paper there when I saw it in the Scopus. Then for maybe about a week, they said your paper has been accepted. I said, this cannot be accepted. Withdraw. I wrote to them, I said, I hereby withdraw my paper because nothing was done. And they are in Scopus. It's one of the predatories. And with predatory, they will not consider paper journals that are in Scopus as predatory. Because you say, yes, Scopus is this and that, but not all journals in Scopus have that impact factor. I think, Prof, I don't know whether I've answered that question very well.
Oh, thank you. I wanted just to highlight that because, like, for example, in MDPI, there are quite some of journals that have got a reasonable impact factor and that are even listed on the DHET. But you find that there are some universities that still look down upon those, journals. So that was really my concern in terms of open access journals, that even though some of these journals are really listed as accredited by DHET, there's still some people that still look down upon them and consider them as not quality journals. So it's maybe something that we should just be aware of.
Yes, if I may quickly say something on that, could you believe that when you look at DHET accredited journals, there are journals that have good quality in a particular field. They are not listed. You ask why? I don't know. So I begin to see that maybe DHET even our list could be a bit of I don't know, maybe politically motivated. I don't know, but it's something that I will just have to reserve my comment on that. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, no, that has been politically correct, and I like what you say. But I also think that, just to add a little bit to what you say, is the fact that just as you do due diligence when you're doing the research, you also need to do due diligence when you want to select a journal for publication. And please, anything that is worthwhile takes some time. I think that's one of the things I learned from my PhD supervisor. And so please, if you just submit something and you think that, oh, it came back and there is no comment and that it's all there, that should be a red flag. It's something that you should pick up.
Yes.
I mean, we cannot all not be thinking, yes. So be very skeptical.
Oh, yeah.
There is a Russian general who said to me at a conference, I think 2 or 3 days ago, he says you need to trust but verify. So I'm also saying this to you now and say, please trust the process, but make sure you verify it. Because at the end of the day, it is your name that is on that paper. At the end of the day, it is your integrity, it is your reputation. Mpo, I understand your comment. You say, thank Prof. We wish we could have more time to go through the session in much detail. And that is why the community of practice for the various postgraduate is nearly done and will be finalized. And that is where a lot of these things we'll discuss there. And I mean, we have very seasoned professors among us. I'm seeing Paul here, I'm seeing Cello, I think Prof. Cornish had left. All these people are resources that we could actually use so that at least they can break it down for us. So we will make sure that all this thing. Then I'm also seeing Dr. Isabella. Yeah, thanks. So any more questions, contributions? Please, this is your space. And I think that we have 1 more minute. Prof, any parting words so that we can bring this particular program to a close?
Thank you very much. And this one, I will say, and I encourage colleagues, please, if you don't contribute to any publication, please clearly say that, please don't put my name there, because your name will be there and you don't know anything about it, and people will look at you as being insincere. And another thing which is very important is that research. Conduct very good research, and to get very good research, do thorough and critical analysis of literature to develop a productive research proposal. Without a very good research proposal, you cannot have very dependable, trusted, and verified information or data to publish outside there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof, and thank you so much. May I just reiterate these few points and then we'll bring the thing to a close. Be very curious and let your curiosity guide you. Be courageous and follow the conviction of your dreams. Please collaborate with people, learn how to communicate, and be committed to what we do. You know, and I always give you the statistics. Africa trains 100 scientists per million people. And it is you are the people who are going to be the future scientists. So please make it a point to understand simple things deeply. Trust your instinct and follow your guts, and make sure that you do the verification. Go out there and make us proud. On this note, I want to thank you all for coming, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time when we do our SIT webinar. Please, I have put the link in the chat. Please go ahead and evaluate us. Tell us what more we can do for you. We are here to serve you, and you are our community. Without you, we have no job. Go out there and have fun, and let's have fun doing this research, and let's challenge conventional wisdom. On this note, thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.